Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. If you haven't already done so, please make sure the volume of this podcast is set perfectly to your listening enjoyment. Please take your seat, whether that's on the treadmill, car, sofa, or bed, and buckle in for the last trip. My name is Jamie Beebe, and I'll be your tour guide, recreating someone's last days in paradise. On behalf of myself and everyone behind the scenes, please enjoy the Last Trip podcast. And because nobody likes a long flight to get to where they want to be, let's prepare for takeoff. Taylor Casey left Chicago in early June 2024 for a month-long yoga retreat in Paradise Island, Bahamas. She's been practicing yoga for over 15 years and was excited to get her teaching certification and bring what she was learning home to her community. But after leaving evening classes on June 19th, Taylor vanished. And guys, this is not a cold case. Taylor only went missing 3 months ago, and her family is desperately searching for her. We need to keep her name in the news, continue to put missing person posters up in the Bahamas, and donate to help with the search. Let's dive in. When Taylor Casey set off to the Bahamas, she was so excited to get her certified yoga teacher training at the Sivananda Yoga Retreat. But what is a yoga retreat all about? The Sivananda Yoga website describes it as an immersion into the daily practices of a yogic lifestyle. They offer a rare combination of traditional ashram and a modern yoga retreat. The core staff is a community of residents who have devoted themselves to a spiritual path, living, practicing, and working together to care for the ashram and promote peace in the world through the philosophy and practice of yoga. And that sounds amazing, but I'm not very versed in yoga. So, who or what is Sivananda Yoga? It's a classical form of Hatha Yoga founded by Swami Sivananda and then popularized by his disciple Swami Vishnudevananda. It's based on 5 key principles, which together promote physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Those principles are proper exercise, proper breathing, proper relaxation, proper diet, and positive thinking and meditation. Sivananda Yoga takes a more holistic approach, going beyond physical fitness, aiming to create balance in all aspects of life, body, mind, and spirit. They have a structured class format, with a typical class starting with breathing exercises, followed by warm-ups like sun salutations, then a series of 12 basic poses, and concluding with a long relaxation and meditation. And it's endorsed by Gwyneth Paltrow. So what more do you need to know? Well, actually, a lot more, which I uncovered when I started researching Sivananda Yoga. Several women have come forward with claims of abuse. One woman, Pamela, said that she was at a group retreat at Windsor Castle when Vishnudevananda asked her to massage him. Because few yogis ever rejected the guru's demands, she obliged for 2 hours. Then, after a yoga practice, she lay down on her back in the corpse position, which is like a state of deep relaxation. It was so hypnotic that Pamela initially didn't notice when Vishnudevananda lay down on top of her and began to rape her. And she stayed silent about it until December 2019, when a handful of women who spent time in the Sivananda centers between 1970s and the 1990s came forward on social media with allegations of sexual abuse. It was yoga's Me Too moment. But when these women came forward, not much was done. Sivananda Yoga largely ignored all the allegations. And Sivananda Yoga is not the only yoga community with controversy and abuse charges. Allegations of abuse have been made against Bikram Chaudhry, Kaustubh Desikachar, Yogi Bhajan, Amrit Desai, and K. Patabi Joyce, to name just a few, which I probably pronounced wrong. And the abuse of power by these gurus can come in many forms. Sexual abuse, financial abuse like working and teaching for free, emotional abuse, racism, sexism, callous indifference, and indentured servitude. Of course, not all yoga retreats are bad or have abusive people, but these are serious allegations. But Taylor was really excited to be going to the Bahamas to do and learn more about something she really loved. It was something that she researched, learned about, and saved up for. Because depending on what accommodations you choose, the almost month-long retreat costs anywhere between $2,400 to $5,300, with the lowest price being that you bring your own tent and accommodations to stay in, and the highest being a private single room with air conditioning. Taylor opted for a private tent, which costs about $3,300 per person, plus travel expenses. Specifically, the retreat she went to is on Paradise Island in Nassau, and described as a vibrant yoga ashram offering vacations, courses, and teacher training, as well as cleanses, detox programs, healing arts training, family programs, kirtan, and more, according to the group's Facebook page. And they have a pretty strict schedule. There's a spiritual gathering from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., yoga class from 8 a.m. to 9:45 a.m., they do brunch, which is all vegetarian. Then there's classes throughout the day. There's a 4 p.m. yoga class, 6 p.m. dinner, 8 p.m. 40-minute meditation and chanting, and then another lesson, with the day usually ending around 10 p.m. Like I mentioned, this retreat is on Paradise Island, located just off the coast of Nassau, which is the capital of the Bahamas. A lot of people know about this little island because it's also where the famous Atlantis Resort is located. And Atlantis is a massive resort complex with a unique blend of luxury hotels, a sprawling water park, a marine habitat, and a casino. It's a large, family-friendly destination with activities ranging from dolphin encounters to large water slides. And a lot of cruise ships dock in the area. In fact, it's one of the top tourist destinations in the Bahamas. And the Bahamas as a whole receives around 7 million visitors per year. The Sivananda Ashram is located on the western shore of Paradise Island in a serene and secluded area. It sits right on a quiet, pristine beach along the Caribbean Sea, surrounded by lush tropical gardens and greenery. And although the Sivananda Retreat is secluded, there's access to the Atlantis Resort, which is an approximately 15 to 20-minute walk along the beach. But once you get there, you need to be a guest of the resort to do much more than sightsee and grab a cup of coffee, which is what many of the retreat people do, because they don't have coffee at the ashram. The only way to really leave the island is to reserve a spot on the boat near the retreat, which means they have a record of who is coming and going from the ashram. There is internet at the retreat so the guests can stay connected, but it gets turned off throughout the day during spiritual meetings. This sounded like the perfect place to Taylor. She loved yoga, and she loved the water, and was looking forward to practicing and learning. And even though she had been there for a couple of weeks before disappearing, according to some news reports, there's no record of Taylor at the Sivananda Retreat, which is baffling to family and friends who had direct contact with her while she was there. There are also very few images and videos of her at the retreat, although there are plenty of the other guests, causing many people to question whether they specifically took her photos and videos down after she went missing. But most disturbing is how the ashram has reacted to Taylor's disappearance, because they pretty much ignored it. They wouldn't hang any missing person posters. They took almost a week to make any kind of announcement to the press or post anything on their social media asking for information to help her family find her. And most of the people currently at the ashram and scheduled to be at the ashram had no idea they were in the middle of a missing person investigation. The general consensus online is that the ashram should be thoroughly investigated. And I agree, especially because when people did start looking into the ashram, they found yet another missing persons case from 2013. Wesley Bell from Texas went missing from this same exact yoga retreat. And he was also 41 years old when he went missing on January 25, 2013. Another attendee of the retreat told authorities that Wesley went snorkeling one day and never came back, although no one was with him or saw him snorkeling. His shoes, shirt, and hat were found on the beach the next day. Authorities determined it was a drowning, but after searching, they never found his body. 2 people are missing from the same yoga retreat. Is that a coincidence or a conspiracy? That's something we might not find out until we find Taylor. Let's get to know more about Taylor Casey after a word from our sponsors.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Lacey, and we co-host the podcast United States of Murder. Each week, we cover a different state with tales of true crime, unsolved mysteries, disappearances, and much more.
Buckle up and join us each Monday as we take you on a dark and twisted ride across America. A few cases that we've already covered include the suspicious death of heroic officer Terrence Yeakey in Oklahoma, the Bayou Strangler in Louisiana, and the tragic case of Sandra Birchmore involving police corruption in Massachusetts.
True crime too heavy for you? Come back for our Wacky Wednesday bonus episodes for hilarious tales of wacky crimes and criminals. We've already covered cases involving a flame-throwing robotic dog, a poisoned hemorrhoid cream, and a fake Bigfoot encounter.
Listen and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast.
And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at United States of Murder.
Taylor was born July 11, 1982, in Harvey, Illinois, a south suburb of Chicago, and raised by her mom, Colette Seymour. She seems like an exceptional person. She's an artist, a hairstylist, an Air Force veteran, a community worker and volunteer, and involved in her church. She was a do-it-all type of person, the kind of person that stands out in a room, and people really admire her sense of self. Because of this, she has more than just a group of friends that love her. She also has a whole community that loves and misses her. She's described by friends and family as someone who defies boundaries and definitions, is a very gentle spirit, loves people, loves to help people, cares about people, and cares about justice and fairness. She lets people be who they are, accepts people for who they are, encourages people, helps people believe in themselves, and never judges anyone. She had worked at the Chicago Freedom School as a program manager, developing youth programs, and had done some work with the Howard Brown Health and HIV testing and prevention. She was involved in the Lighthouse Church of Chicago, a predominantly Black and LGBTQ+ church. She advocated for homeless LGBTQ+ youth and was deeply involved in queer activism. Taylor was a fixture of Chicago's transgender community and a beloved youth advocate. And she truly loved yoga. She had been practicing for 15 years before going to the Bahamas to get her teaching certificate. She couldn't wait to bring what she was learning there back to Chicago to teach others and share her experience. She kept in close contact with family and friends while she was there, sending photos, giving updates, and telling her mom she was excited to get home to show her some new moves. So what could have happened that ended up in Taylor vanishing so suddenly and mysteriously? Let's go through the timeline of Taylor's disappearance. Taylor arrived at the Sivananda Ashram on June 3, 2024, planning to stay for about a month. She spoke to her mom often while she was there, never raising any red flags. She sent a lot of photos and seemed really happy to be there. She told her mom everything was going great. There were 14 total retreat participants there at the time, but Taylor was the only Black person and the only trans person there. On June 19th, Taylor spoke with her family as she normally did, updating them on her progress. Nothing was out of the ordinary, and there were 14 days left of her stay. Taylor later went to evening prayers at 8 p.m. and was seen by several other participants leaving early, around 9 p.m. Now, to set the scene, it was a full moon that night and the waves were crashing, with the current being unusually strong. There were many signs posted near the beach saying, "Do not swim at night and watch out for jet skis." The year before, a Swami was swimming and was struck and killed by a jet skier. The locals ride them and come very close to the shore. Also, the operators frequently offer drugs to tourists. And sharks feed at night, with no lifeguards on duty. The ashram handbook tells students and guests to never swim at night and not to leave the property without letting someone know. Taylor was a rule follower, so I can't see her going out for a swim that night or leaving the property. especially with the rigid schedule they were following. There are some other private properties near the ashram. The property right next door had a boat coming and going a lot, but the windows were tinted black, so you couldn't see into it at all. There was a big party at this property Thursday, Friday, and Saturday that week as well. At around 11 p.m., another guest heard Taylor's tent opening and closing, but never looked out to see if it was her or someone else. The next morning, June 20th, Taylor did not show up for the 6 a.m. morning prayer. The ashram waited until 1 p.m. to call Taylor's mother. They called and asked her if she had heard from Taylor, saying that she missed the morning classes and they hadn't seen her. Now that's not a call any mother wants to get, and Colette's heart sank. She knew immediately something was very wrong, and she was upset they waited so long to start looking for her, because it would be unlike Taylor to leave the ashram. The people at the ashram possibly waited because sometimes people are sent to the yoga retreat by relatives to deal with things like addiction, recovery, loss, or other trauma. So it's not uncommon in these scenarios for people to disappear from the ashram for a day or several days. They supposedly go to the Atlantis to drink, gamble, party, and then show back up later. And the ashram was hoping this was the case with Taylor. But what I find interesting about that is Atlantis is about a 15 to 20-minute walk down the beach and requires a wristband to get in. The reef is the closest branch of Atlantis accessible from the beach, and once inside, it's another 20 minutes on a shuttle to dining, shops, or the casino. And this shuttle can also take you to the road with a bridge leading on or off the island. The only other way to get on or off the island is by water taxi, which must be booked through reception in advance. There are no cameras at all at the ashram, but once you're in the vicinity of Atlantis, there are cameras everywhere. Between the ashram and Atlantis are those private homes and buildings, mostly abandoned or empty. So that's it. There's nowhere else to go. So finally, at 9:24 p.m., the ashram notified police that Taylor had not shown up for any classes that day and was missing. By this time, no one had heard from or seen Taylor since the night before, and for her not to reach out to her family was very unusual. She was in constant contact and had never gone missing before. Most of Taylor's things were left in her tent, with the exception of her phone and passport. Immediately, officers from the Paradise Island Police Station and the Marine Support Services were mobilized and started searching on both land and sea. Additionally, they utilized their unmanned aerial systems, meaning their drones, the K9 unit, and AI systems. On June 21st, the Royal Bahamas Police Force issued a missing person poster, alerting the public to her disappearance. What's interesting here is that the ashram still hadn't made any kind of post on social media asking if anyone had any information. They hadn't alerted the others staying at the ashram that Taylor was missing or asking if anyone had any information, and didn't put any of the missing person posters up near or in the ashram. On June 22nd, they brought search dogs to the ashram and said they picked up Taylor's scent at her tent and then tracked it to the water, but the trail ended there. At this time, Taylor's niece was able to ping her phone, showing it was actually in the water. The police found it on June 24th in 53 feet of water near a boating dock. But after retrieving it, they haven't been able to access the contents. Investigators in the Bahamas said they asked American authorities for help unlocking the phone, but they had no luck. Taylor's family has asked them for the phone, but so far they've refused to turn it over. To me, this is a red flag, because people don't go swimming with their phones. So how would her phone get in the water? Was it on the beach and the tide took it out, 53 feet out into the water? Could it have been thrown into the water? It was found near the boating dock, but the boat operator said he never saw Taylor that night. Police also said they uncovered Taylor's journal, but there is no mention of what her journal said or where exactly it was found. So the only thing that has not been found is her passport. The police also informed the family that the Atlantis security personnel reviewed the CCTV footage surrounding the resort and saw nothing. But the detectives never reviewed the footage themselves. When authorities spoke with some of the people at the ashram, a story came out that one of the retreat participants said she was approached while sitting alone at the beach by a stranger that same day Taylor was last seen. The unidentified man was wearing a Celtics baseball cap and dressed all in black. He claimed he was from Chicago and was interested in taking a yoga class, and proceeded to follow her into the property. But that detail of him being from Chicago seems pretty convenient since Taylor is also from Chicago. Another story, told to authorities by Sam Soskin, the lead manager of the retreat, said that the Monday before Taylor's disappearance, an unidentified man with a walkie-talkie was seen walking the same platform where Taylor's tent was located. But there are a lot of people online questioning whether either of these stories are true. Finally, on June 25th, 6 days after Taylor was last seen, the organizers of the ashram posted a message to Facebook, writing, "A participant from our yoga certification program, Taylor Casey, is missing. On June 20th, we requested the police investigate and informed the U.S. Embassy and Ms. Casey's family. Ms. Casey's disappearance was discovered on June 20th when she did not attend morning classes. She was last seen at the retreat late on the evening of June 19th. We urge anyone with information on Ms. Casey's whereabouts to contact the local police immediately. The ashram is working with authorities in their investigation. Your assistance is greatly appreciated." A similar message was emailed on June 27th to all yoga retreat attendees. So by now, word was slowly starting to get out that Taylor had gone missing from the ashram. On June 25th, somebody wrote on the Find Taylor Casey Facebook page, "I just left the ashram today due to this situation, and can confirm they were not telling us about what was going on or organizing any search efforts. I arrived on Saturday and found out when someone back home sent me an article about it on Monday." They had only released a statement and spoken to police until last night's Instagram post, which went up after I told them I knew about the missing person and was cutting my trip short. They tend to avoid alarmism or anything that will disrupt the peaceful, spiritual nature of the facility. But this lack of transparency or concern is next level wrong. The evening activity ended at 10 p.m., and she did not show up for the 6 a.m. meeting. The boat operator I spoke with today when I left has no record of her leaving the island by boat, so she must have walked down the beach after 10 p.m. They have always advised guests not to walk the beach after dark for safety reasons, and discourage leaving the ashram at all during your stay. But there's nothing stopping you from leaving, or security preventing others from walking into the facility. I've always been a big supporter of Sivananda, but the hypocrisy of this community-based organization not rallying in awareness or search efforts are unacceptable. I hope now that her real community has spread this news far and wide, that some concerted effort is made to find Taylor. And the silence from the ashram is, honestly, disturbing. I understand it's a business, and they may be worried about how it looks to potential attendees, but there's a human life at stake, and the sooner that they search for her, the better. Not to mention protecting the safety of other attendees. On June 27th, Taylor's mom, Colette, traveled to Paradise Island to find her daughter. But when she searched the area herself and talked to the Bahamian authorities, she was left with more questions than answers. She was able to enter the ashram to collect Taylor's belongings from her tent, but was surprised to see that it wasn't being treated like a crime scene. The items found in Taylor's tent included her Bible, teacher training course book, a picture of Jesus Christ, Louise Hay affirmation cards, her yoga mat, books titled "We Do This Until We Free Us" and "All the Black Girls Are Activists," lavender essential oil, toiletries, a sketch pad with her paintings, yoga pants, flip-flops, and t-shirts. Colette described her visit to the Sivananda ashram as deeply unsettling, saying, "It became apparent to us when we met with the Sivananda ashram leaders that they were struggling to keep a linear, cohesive narrative regarding Taylor's disappearance." And upon entering the retreat center, Colette and her team were advised by police not to speak to any of the guests. While there, she noticed the police and ashram had still failed to place a missing person poster of Taylor on the retreat's premises and in the surrounding areas. The police station's wall of missing persons also did not include Taylor. She said, "If safety is of the utmost importance to the Sivananda Ashram Yoga Retreat and police, why have they neglected to inform participants at the ashram and tourists staying on the island that Taylor Casey is missing?" And that's a great question. Then, in a new twist, on July 5th, the Chief Superintendent Michael Johnson of the Royal Bahamas Police Force was placed on garden leave, which is a policy similar to paid leave. They said this followed a recent social media circulation of voice notes involving the chief taking bribes. This raises questions about the integrity of the organization and whether they were really doing anything at all to find Taylor. On Taylor's 42nd birthday, July 11th, her family and friends held a press conference in front of the Federal Plaza in Chicago to bring further awareness to her disappearance. Colette stood in front of the media and said, "My child has been missing for almost 3 weeks. My family, friends, and I are distraught. I am pleading with everyone to call your elected officials and demand the FBI lead this investigation and bring her home safe and sound." Taylor's disappearance sent shockwaves through Chicago's LGBTQ+ community. Her family and friends are pleading with elected officials, LGBTQ+ leaders, and the media to elevate her story and pressure elected officials to leverage the federal resources needed to investigate her disappearance. Jackie Boyd, a close friend of Taylor's, said, "Too often our Black, trans, and gender-expansive siblings go missing, with little to no attention in the media or investigation by authorities. We are extremely concerned for Taylor's safety and need your support in keeping the pressure on American and Bahamian authorities." On July 30th, an anonymous donor put out a $10,000 reward for any information concerning the disappearance of Taylor. In a place like the Bahamas, $10,000 is a lot of money, and they were hoping it would make a difference for someone to come forward so they could bring Taylor home. Since then, Taylor's family and friends fear her case is going cold, and they cannot let that happen. They're not getting updates from the authorities in the Bahamas and feel those authorities are doing the bare minimum in finding her, if even that. We must keep her name in the media and push the authorities in the Bahamas to continue their search, as well as bring in the FBI. We cannot let this become another cold case. There are some theories in this case that we'll cover after a word from our sponsors. The ashram has been putting the theory out there that Taylor left willingly and on her own. But that's a pretty absurd theory to me. First of all, she didn't take any of her things with her. Her toiletries, Bible, clothing, and everything else was found in her tent. The only things missing were her phone and passport, and her phone was later found in the water. Second, she had no reason to leave. She saved up and went to the ashram to get her teaching certificate. She isn't just going to leave after she's almost certified. And she also isn't going to leave in the middle of the night with no way to get off an island and only bring her passport and not tell anyone there or any of her friends and family she was leaving. So that leaves accident or foul play. I know some people are thinking, well, her phone was found in the water. Maybe she went for a swim and got pulled under or something like that. But people don't go swimming with their phones and passports. And Taylor just doesn't strike me as the type of person to see all those no swimming signs and the warnings by the ashram not to go in the water at night, and then just go for a night swim. They've also searched the water for her body and found nothing. And if she went outside for a walk and fell or had a medical emergency, they would have found her body. And there'd still be no reason for her phone to be in the water. So that leaves foul play. Taylor's mom said she knows better than to trust strangers in a foreign country. And there's no way she would have voluntarily gone with someone she didn't know in the middle of the night. Of course, it's possible Taylor was lured into helping someone who feigned being in distress. Or maybe someone targeted Taylor because she's a Black trans woman. Out of the 321 murders of transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people reported worldwide from October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2023, 74% were committed in Latin America and the Caribbean, as revealed in a study by LGBTQ advocacy group Transgender Europe. The study also revealed that 91% of the worldwide trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming murder victims happened to be trans women or feminine presenting, a majority of whom were people of color. Much of the Caribbean is not LGBTQ+ friendly. Homosexuality is criminalized in the islands of Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago, and Barbados. In the Bahamas particularly, while same-sex sexual activity is legal, there are no laws that protect against discrimination or harassment based on sexual orientation or gender identity. They also don't recognize same-sex unions, including marriages or partnerships. Households headed by same-sex couples do not have the same rights as opposite-sex married couples. Not only that, in the Bahamas, transgender people are not legally allowed to change their gender identity marker on official documents. The country also lacks laws that protect LGBTQ+ individuals from conversion therapy practices. So it's absolutely possible that Taylor was targeted and either kidnapped or harmed simply because of who she is. Beyond that, the Bahamas remain a transit point for illegal drugs bound for the United States and other international markets. The major markets are drug trafficking, firearms trafficking, illegal gambling, and human smuggling. And the reason for this is because the entire country is accessible by all types of watercraft, including small sailboats and powerboats. So Taylor could have even seen or heard something illegal and the criminals wanted to silence her. Or she could have been the victim of a random act of violence. Another possibility is that someone at the ashram knows more than what they're saying. They've been accused of abuse in the past. They've been accused of promoting a cult-like atmosphere. They've been accused of sex trafficking. What's stopping them from covering up a murder? The fact that her phone was found in deep water is one of the most disturbing clues. Getting on a boat is one way Taylor could have left the island, and if she was unwillingly taken off the island, it would make sense they would throw her phone in the ocean as they were leaving. The only other way she could have gotten off the island is to walk all the way to the toll bridge and reach Nassau that way, but she would have been caught on camera if she had done that. There have been no more clues or updates in Taylor's disappearance, and her family is desperate to not let her case go cold. Should you travel to the Bahamas? The short answer is yes. You'll probably be just fine. And it's a beautiful place to vacation. According to the United States Travel Advisory, the Bahamas is at a level 2. Exercise increased caution due to crime. The majority of the crime occurs in Nassau and Grand Bahama. In Nassau, the gang-on-gang violence has resulted in a high homicide rate, primarily affecting the local population. Violent crime, such as burglaries, armed robberies, and sexual assaults occur in both tourist and non-tourist areas. The Bahamas is slowly becoming LGBTQ+ friendly, but they just aren't there yet. If you're headed to the Bahamas, or anywhere for that matter, let someone know where you're going and when, and consider using location sharing on your phone, which is how Taylor's niece was able to ping her phone and find it in the water. Otherwise, I doubt it would have ever been found. Sexual assault is common in the Bahamas, especially near hotels, casinos, and on the beach. So be very aware of your surroundings and don't walk around alone if you don't have to. If you are traveling alone, be sure there are people around and you aren't walking in a secluded area. And don't walk alone at night, especially outside of main tourist areas and beaches. And there are some generalized safety tips that transgender people more specifically should take into account while traveling. Make sure you have all necessary travel documents on you at all times. Make sure your name, gender, photo, and country of origin are updated to match your government-issued photo ID. If the items are not updated with your current name, photo, and gender, take the necessary steps to update those to avoid any issues while at the airport or in another country. Depending on where you're from, you might have the option to mark X on your passport, which is the case in the US in recent years for your gender. Be prepared to have an explanation from a doctor or supporting documents when traveling to countries that do not recognize that. It's also important to know that airport body scanners are designed to check anomalies on a person, which can mean things like binders, prosthetics, or generally any item that is deemed suspicious. Depending on what country you're in, these items could be flagged for removal or disposal if it does not match the traveler's assigned gender or if it is recognized as a threat to public safety. Some airports won't cause you any trouble with these items. Just be aware that certain types of prosthetics, clothing, jewelry, etc. might require extra checking. Another major piece of advice I have is to research where you're going. Research the culture, the laws, read reviews, go online and ask other people about their experiences. Really learn about and understand the location you'll be spending time at. And this includes group travel experiences like a health or wellness retreat, a yoga retreat, or even a group hike. Research the company you'll be with, check the reviews, verify their credentials, and research the safety of the location. Even just do a quick Google search and look for news articles. It was pretty easy to find the accusations of abuse toward the Sivananda Yoga Retreats, and I wonder if Taylor still would have gone if she had known some of those accusations. But guys, overall, the Bahamas is a beautiful country to visit. Just be sure that no matter where you're traveling, you inform someone about your plans before going anywhere. Tell someone reliable where you're going and what you'll be doing, and when to expect you back. And my number one tip to staying alive on vacation is to pay attention to your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it isn't. Taylor Casey is 41 years old, has a light brown complexion, and long dark natural brown hair. She is slim, 5 feet 10 inches tall, and usually wears glasses. She was last seen around 9 p.m. on June 19, 2024 at the Sivananda Ashram Yoga Retreat on Paradise Island in the Bahamas. This is not and should not become a cold case. Now is the time to help find Taylor Casey. If you can help, please go to chuffed.org. That's CHUFFED.org. And donate to help with ongoing legal and private investigation expenses, family support expenses, additional trips to Nassau and DC, as well as international and national campaigns and outreach. And I'll put that link in the show notes. If you were on Paradise Island at that time or have any information at all about Taylor Casey, please contact the Royal Bahamas Police Force Criminal Investigations Department at 502-9991 or call Crime Stoppers at 382-TIPS. That's 382-8477. You can also text or call 773-676-0733 with any information that could bring Taylor home. Let's do everything we can to find Taylor Casey and bring her home to her family, friends, and the community who love her. And finally, remember to leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars if you like the show, or hell, even if you don't. But either way, feel free to let me know what you think. Please follow The Last Trip on Instagram at The Last Trip Crime Pod and subscribe on Patreon to support the show. You'll get extra research, videos, photos, and updates, and even learn more about my personal travels. That's patreon.com/thelasttrippodcast. I'm Jamie Beebe, bringing you your last trip and signing off until the next one. Thanks for listening.